All right, on March the 5th of this year, a mob of about 150 people overran police security posts at a police training facility that's under construction just outside of Atlanta. The anti-police protesters call the site Cop City. Well, among the 35 arrested that night and among the 23 that were actually charged with domestic terrorism was Thomas Jurgens. He's a staff attorney at the Southern Poverty Law Center. Now, the SPLC claimed that he was a legal observer, quote, performing a public service by protecting the rights of protesters. Well, on Tuesday, he was indicted along with 60 others on racketeering charges, as announced by the Attorney General of Georgia, Chris Carr. Joining me now to discuss this is Chris Gacek, Senior Fellow for Regulatory Affairs here at the Family Research Council. Chris, welcome back to the program.
Good to be here, Tony.
So first, let's start with this. What's significant about this charge of racketeering that Jurgens has been charged with?
Well, racketeering is it describes a complex set of crimes. It's organized. It involves multiple parties, and it can extend over a long period of time or a relatively short period of time. That's not so important in Georgia, but it deals with organized crime and an enterprise that is involved in carrying out the criminal purpose. And in this case, it was to destroy or obstruct the construction of this police training facility.
So it's not like you got a crowd there and they get all worked up over this and they go and they storm the gates of this training facility. This is something that was plotted out, planned out, and according to what was released from the Attorney General there, this happened over months and there were several activities involved in this criminal conspiracy.
Oh, that's correct. And you're exactly right. And in fact, I look at the SPLC lawyers' presence there as indication that it was absolutely not spontaneous, because, you know, who brings their lawyer to a spontaneous riot, right? No. So this was definitely something that's part of a modus operandi on the hard left. The National Lawyers Guild is the organization that he was associated with as a volunteer while being an SPLC employee. And it's basically a hard left communist organization that's been around since the 1930s. And this is a sort of a left, violent left legal tactic, right? They sort of bring their observer lawyers to watch them destroy and attack people.
Let me ask you about that. Jurgens and the SPLC claimed that he was this legal observer there to protect the rights of protesters. So how can you be a legal observer of felony activities? I mean, it's actually a crime to witness a felony and not report it. I mean, isn't he an agent of the court, as that's what an attorney is? Isn't he required to support the law?
Well, this is an area, I think that you've raised a number of good points, and there's a real tension here. In a lot of places, in a lot of jurisdictions, the left is able to get away with this, right? They're able to sort of skirt the boundaries of legal ethics and what's required of reporting. For example, police or prison guards who see crimes and don't report them, felonies, they can be charged with this crime, misprision of a felony, and that's a crime in Georgia as well. So when you get to like a civilian, it's not so it's not universally recognized that you're required to report a crime. Now, and a lawyer is a sort of an in between. There's an intermediate status. What is your duty here, right? But certainly, you're not allowed to be a participant. And so in Jurgens' case, it appears that he was actually, part of the group of people who overwhelmed the police. He wasn't just standing back. But even if he were just standing back, I think that I believe that the Georgia, law enforcement authorities are incorrect in being very skeptical of this whole sort of modus operandi of having these lawyers involved in riot, planning and protection.
Now, there's some evidence that have surfaced that the district attorney there in the Atlanta area, which is left-leaning, was trying to kind of cut Jurgen out of the charges, but the Attorney General of Georgia is the one that made sure that his case was presented to the grand jury.
Exactly. And because there was domestic terrorism involved in this and part of the crime or the predicate actions, that allows the state of Georgia to be a full participant in the proceedings. And therefore, the local, district attorney wasn't the only person in charge here because they were going to cut this guy loose. Absolutely.
Right.
But Georgia Attorney General Carr said, no, that's not acceptable. And in fact, he was originally arrested and charged, but in the recent indictment, the one that came down a couple of days ago, he's charged again. So there's the current law enforcement environment in Georgia is that this guy is not going to be allowed to walk.
Yeah, very interesting. We're going to continue to track this. Chris Gacek, thanks so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.